Hi, my name is David Parker. Throughout my life, I've had some absolutely wonderful experiences happen to me, with me, for me. And they've been life-changing. Sometimes in small ways, sometimes in big ways. I'm getting older now, I'm retired, and I want to record some of my stories. I don't want them lost forever. They were so meaningful to me, and I'm hoping that they'll be meaningful for somebody else. In the early 1990s, there was a health crisis with HIV and AIDS, and I was a registered nurse, and I know in the hospitals, a lot of nurses were refusing to take care of patients with this disease. So where were they going to go? They divide them up amongst, some of the willing staff members, but it was becoming overwhelming. So this wonderful group here in town took over a closed down nursing home, been closed for years, and opened it up and turned it into an AIDS HIV unit. I was one of the very first employees, and for the first couple of weeks, we only had one patient. The nursing home, of course, came with many ghosts from when it was opened prior. Soon we grew from one patient up to 35, and then we opened up another wing that had a total of 55 rooms. And plus we had a clinic there, an HIV clinic. We had a physician that came to the clinic every day, saw our patients. We had classes, we had all kinds of things going on there. It was an absolutely beautiful community center for this resource. It was an interesting place because at the time we had one medicine. I think it was called AZT. It was this little tiny white pill. And there really wasn't much research going on. So, was it beneficial? Was it lethal? Who knows? But everybody got it every 4 hours. But most of our clients eventually were dying off. I mean, after a while, everybody did, because back then it was a death sentence. Unlike it is today, it's able to be managed. I had so many incredible encounters with some of the most lovely people I've ever met in my life. And it was interesting because every time we had a death, the patients saw their own mortality and they bonded together so well. And it was just something that they did together. They would get together and exclude us, the staff members. And that was absolutely marvelous support that they gave each other. And one by one, we lost them and more came in. It was a marvelous place to work. I was there for about 3 years, and then it closed down. There was this one family that came in. Mom had gotten it, supposedly, who knows, from a blood transfusion. She delivered a baby. The baby at the time when Mom came in as a patient was about 1.5 years old. Evidently, the mother gave it to the husband, who really wasn't that sick at the time. Mom was very sick. And then they had a little girl that was about 5 years old or so, and she tested negative. And this mother, I wish I could remember their names. Oh my God, she taught me so much about caring for people. She would dry heave constantly. She was so sick. And her daughter, when she would come out of school, would want to come in and, of course, see her mom and then eat with her because, at home they used to have dinner together. Well, Mom, just the thought of food would just make her retch, and the smell of food was so bad. And for about 30 minutes before the daughter would get there, generally they'd pick up McDonald's or something like that, we would start loading Mom up with antiemetics, anti-nausea medicines, which can be very sedating. But it was the only way that she could get through spending time with her daughter and sharing a meal with her daughter. So the mom couldn't eat, the little girl did, but since she was the only one in the family that was going to survive, Mom did absolutely everything she could to create these memories for that little girl to hold on to and to, being the sole survivor of this family, to be able to call on those memories of that time with her mom. And her husband come in and take pictures of them together. And she was the most loving, wonderful person. I've met many wonderful, loving people. She was so special. She was getting very, very sick. And finally, she passed. I was the nurse that shift when she died. The 1.5-year-old baby was next, and he died. Dad was still doing pretty well, but boy, he got sick and sank quick. And he died there at this AIDS facility over the time that we were open. And it was interesting that I was the nurse on shift for all three of them. And I had bonded so well with them. They were such beautiful, wonderful people. The father's mother, so was the grandmother of the little kids, she was always there. She didn't, I don't know, she just kind of knitted or crocheted or something. But she was always present. I never saw her doing much for them, but, she did what she could, and that showed up, and she totally showed up all the time she was there. The little girl, now the last of the family, moved in with the grandmother, and our facility closed, and I moved on to another hospice facility, and we had opened up a pediatric inpatient unit, and I went there too. I did 17 years of hospice nursing, and 5 of those years were pediatric hospice. So, now, now it gets tough. I promised I wasn't going to cry. I had so many kids. We took them from newborn till 17 years old. We had many newborns. We had 13, 14-year-old mothers there taking care of their dying child from birth defects and absolute craziness that went on in their lives. And we had the most marvelous staff. Everybody was so dedicated to those kids, to all of our patients, and to their family members. And we would move the kids in and the families. And we had, stacks of quilts and pillows. And, we'd make beds on the sofa and the chairs on the floor. We just moved everybody in, and we cooked for them. And we fed everybody. Well, one day I came in, I was doing night shift. And, they told me, well, we got this little, I forget if she was 11 or 12 years old, this little girl dying of HIV. And I thought, oh my gosh, my mind went back to this family. And, I didn't remember their names. So, when I was doing my shift and I was walking around the rooms and I went in there, I saw the grandmother. And I kept thinking, I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you? And she was looking at me, I seen you too. Where? And then it hit, she was the grandmother for that family of 4, the 3 that died. And I was the nurse. And I was like, oh my God, this is the little girl that was supposed to live. This is a little girl that tested negative. Well, testing wasn't as good as it is now. And it, evidently she converted. And, now at 11, 12 years old, she was just emaciated, totally bedbound. She didn't remember me, but she was talking. And one thing she always wanted was to get married. That was her dream, to get married. And a tiny little girl. We pitched in, the staff did, and somebody went to a bridal shop and they found it looked like a little kid's wedding gown. It might have been a flower girl outfit or something. It was absolutely beautiful with lace and, puffy here and tight there. And it looked gorgeous. And we cut the back so that, she could lay in bed and, we had her in diapers and we had a gown on her. But we would fit the wedding dress over her gown. And she was there for like 2 weeks, before she died. And she wore the gown constantly. She would just smile, just looking at it and smile. When I would get my work caught up, I would, I would move a chair up next to her bed, and I would snuggle up, as close as I could and hold her. And I would tell her stories about her mom and dad. She couldn't remember her mom and dad. She had the affected disease in the brain, which made it kind of nice because I could tell the same story about her mom and dad over and over and over, and she loved hearing about them. And, I told her about, do you remember, bringing the French fries in and, sitting at the foot of your mom's bed and her holding you and eating fries. And I talked about her little brother. She didn't recall much, and her dad. I spent a lot of time with this woman, with this girl, because I adored the love that her mom had for her. And her mom couldn't be here now for her last child's death, but I could be. So it just felt like the right thing to do. I just kind of opened myself up to her parents and her little brother's spirit. I said, use me as you can to comfort this little girl through her last days. And, she had tubes and drains, and I had to take care of all that. But I held her like her mother did when her mom was sick. I told her stories and talked to her. There was something very interesting about this little girl, which was different than all our other kids. We had opened up the pediatric hospice unit in a house in a very nice neighborhood. Somebody had a celebrity tennis tournament and raised so much money they bought the house and donated it to our hospice company. And it was wonderful, marvelous. It was so homey. Had hardwood floors and a fireplace and a pool and nice backyard. And the day she came in, I wasn't there. That was on day shift. I was working night shift. And the first thing she said was, let the cat in, let the cat in. And people were looking around, they're like, what cat? We don't have a cat. And they looked through the sliding glass door in her room, and there was this cat sitting there. She goes, yeah, that's my cat. And she lived way on the other end of town, and her grandmother said she didn't have a cat. So anyway, the nurse opened the door. The cat walked in, jumped right up, and cuddled right next to her. And she says, this is Oscar. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. So what's hospice? What are they going to do? Oscar would stay, generally come around sunset, usually, stay all night, and then in the morning, at sunrise, Oscar would run out and leave. So that was our night shift job, was, to make sure the doors open to let Oscar in, and then make sure the doors open in the morning to let Oscar out. And Oscar only visited her, only stayed with her. I thought there was something very odd about this cat, and I looked at him. I said, are you really a cat? And he gave me such a look, a loving, warm look. And I thought, what's going on here? So anyway, finally it happens. It was a little after midnight, and she died. And Oscar was there and cuddled up with her. She loved that cat. And a few minutes after she died, Oscar hops out of bed and goes out the sliding door and never came back. I always wondered, what was that? What was it? Did something incredible and spiritual take on the form of a cat? I don't know. We never had a cat do that before. I was hospice nurse 17 years. I never saw that. A lot of our patients would see cats. I wouldn't necessarily see them. Sometimes I'd see like the shadow of something moving. But it seemed to be something frequent that our terminally ill patients would see. But this was a physical cat. And after years, I was the hospice patient for Mom and Dad, the little boy, and the little girl. All of them, over a period of years, died in my care. And that has been such an incredible, special event in my life. I kind of learned how to express caring even more for my life watching that mother, leaving memories for her daughter. They're all gone now. I never did see the grandmother again. Everybody's gone. I wished I would have kept in contact with her. But that's one of my most fond hospice memories.